еще раз подчеркну, что Украина для нас это не просто соседняя страна. Это неотъемлемая часть нашей собственной истории.
You can bet Johnny's gonna put himself like reacting to all the events that are taking place and like how much it's disappointing him in the entry sequence. Dude, I love him. I love him so much. Johnny Harris was like built in a lab, okay? A laboratory, okay? A liberal laboratory to be the ultimate Brooklyn liberal. He is awesome in every way, shape, or form, okay?
Культуры, духовного пространства.
Look at that. He's like making Russia bigger.
Часть нашей
Look.
собственной истории.
Look, watch the editing.
Культуры,
Maps, baby. He's working on maps.
Hassle.
He's hard at work. He's doing his part. I love him. There's a reason why so many Mormons are intelligent. What's wrong with liberals? Just curious. I love liberals. What do you mean? I'm a liberal, dude. I hate socialism. I'm a lib.
Это наши товарищи, близкие, среди которых не только коллеги, друзья, бывшие сослуживцы.
Why are you doing this? Why are you fighting this needless war?
Ну и родственники.
This war of conquest that will
God, I love him. I love him, dude. How can you not love him? Dude, this is incredible. Is there TOS in this? Did any of you libs watch this already? Dude, this is literally the why wasn't I your mother, Vladimir Putin, but in like long video format, okay? Yeah, it's the if I was your father version of the if I was your mother. Dude, I gotta run it back. God, I love him. I love him. I love him.
Why are you doing this? Why are you fighting this needless war?
The only thing missing from this is literally spontaneously busting out into some kind of spoken word poetry, okay? Is he gonna graphic design the war away? Fuck yeah, dude. He's gonna fucking map it out so hard. I love him.
This war of conquest that will topple so many lives. He sent his forces, his missiles, in the middle of the night. These are the troops, hundreds of thousands of them, that had been camped out on the border for months.
21
Troops
Yeah,
that
he's mapping out troop activity at the border, dude. Look at
Putin
him.
had insisted were there for a routine military exercise.
Yeah, he's gonna start singing Hamilton to Putin. No, he won't do that, actually, because if there's anything that Putin fears most, it's the Jeffersonian democracy. That's right. So he wouldn't dare risk that because that's nuclear annihilation. If Vladimir Putin hears one fucking line of Hamilton being sung in his direction, in his vicinity, oh my God.
And that the US and UK intel swore were actually preparing to invade. Many around the world, including in Ukraine, thought that this was just the West being dramatic, stoking the tensions. But the intel was exactly right.
Dude, this is so much of a self-insert. Oh my God. Like, I love him. How do you not see hyper-individualism in display when you watch something like this? Dude, American liberals, Jesus Christ. It's like this entire war is playing out for his benefit, for his sake. And, you know, this is not simply about Vladimir Putin's war. This is a war that I've had with my own mind every single morning since the war started. This is how I cope with the realities happening right in front of our eyes. You know, what can he do? It's not like he's gonna arm himself and go to fucking Lviv and then move over to Donbass by hailing a fucking cabin, paying them like $5,000 or some shit to go fight in the front lines. So he's fighting in the front lines of the information warfare by making maps.
Most of those troops crossed the border last week, and are now inside the country.
Russian military vehicles, including tanks, entering Ukraine.
The invasion, the attack that Russia promised would never happen, has now started.
That's it. I'm flying out to fucking Ukraine right now. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna have bags full of, you know what? You know what I'm gonna bring with me? The Constitution. And I'm gonna show that to every Russian soldier that's invading right now, and I'm gonna tell them, stop it. You fucking stop it right now. You stop it, and they will.
He's being attacked from all directions.
Hours after this invasion started in the middle of the night on Thursday morning, Ukraine's President Zelensky appeared on TV.
Why make a comedy out of this? Because I'm making a comedy out of this editing. Okay? And this is the other side of that. The other side of me making a comedy out of this is this, like the over dramatic way of talking about it and how it's like affecting you personally.
Just to talk to his people, but to speak directly.
Is literally milking the news for 9 days straight with max viewership of career. First of all, no, this is not the maximum viewership of my career. Secondly, I'm literally a fucking news commentator. Of course, I talk about the news every day. The difference is this is the first time you've been here because this is the first time you've ever cared about the news, you dumb, pathetic little bitch. And now, for the first time ever in your life, you've cared about the news, so you're in here. It's like making you upset that someone else who's been covering this shit and covering everything that's going on for the past however many fucking years that I've been doing this, every single fucking day, you're like, oh, it seems like you just, milking this war. You're a first-time viewer. You're milking the war, dumbass. You're the one who cares about it for the first time ever in your fucking life.
To Russians themselves.
Я обращаюсь к российским гражданам как гражданин Украины.
We share a border of over 2,000 kilometers, and along this border, your troops are stationed, almost 200,000 soldiers. Your leaders just approved them to make a step towards us, into the territory of another country.
И этот шаг
This step is likely the beginning of a massive war on the European continent.
Russia again warned its nuclear forces were on high alert.
I gotta pee, I'll
Several
be
cities
back.
were hit in residential areas, resulting in dozens of civilian deaths.
Wait, oops.
This is a war unlike any war the world has ever seen. It looks like a war from like 1830, but it's happening in 2022. Putin's army is much stronger than Ukraine's, at least in terms of numbers. If he really wants to, he probably is going to be able to take over the country's major population centers and oust the Ukrainian government. The US and NATO can't send troops for fear of starting a clash between two nuclear nations, something we simply do not do. It's a red line that no one crosses. I want to tell you exactly why Vladimir Putin and his army are here. The story behind this invasion is the story of this one man's worldview, but it's also a story of a bet that he took, a bet that Ukrainians would give up, lay down their arms, and see the world the way he does. But if there's anything I have learned in the past week, it's that even if Putin conquers a big portion of this country, something he has the military hardware to do, even if he does that, he still won't win this war. In fact, I'm here to argue that he's already lost.
There are big explosions taking place in Kiev right now.
People here are going to be waking up to a very different country than the one they went to sleep in.
We are getting just non-stop reports of attacks and Russian strikes from all across the country.
Vladimir Putin has already lost this war. And to understand what I'm talking about, you have to look at two things. Number one, what Putin said right before the invasion. And number two, what actually happened once he invaded. I want to show you both. So a few days before the invasion, Putin gets on TV and addresses the nation.
Уважаемые граждане России.
I love him even with his like hat and his Henley shirt, you know what I mean? The disheveled look. He's just awesome. You need to hire his editor. He's his editor, dude. That's his whole shtick, is that he's like an incredible editor. He is so fucking good at editing. Straight up. Like,
Дорогие друзья.
It's this unsurprising hour-long history lecture where Putin lays out his grand, intricate argument as to why Ukraine, in fact, isn't a real country.
Итак, начну с того, что современная Украина целиком и полностью была создана Россией.
Instead, Ukraine was created by the authors of the Russian Communist Revolution 100 years ago. And now Ukraine, this invented country that's just an extension of Russia itself, has been hijacked by the US and Europe, who have installed neo-Nazi thugs to run the show. Seriously, he said all of this. You can go watch the hour-long lecture if you want. According to his story, the West did this to eventually force Ukraine into their military alliance called NATO, which they will use to defeat Russia. Just like, and seriously he says this, just like Hitler did 80 years ago. But this time, Putin will make sure that Russia is ready for the invasion.
Второй раз мы такой ошибки не допустим.
Oh gosh, there is a lot to unpack here. The neo-Nazi thug thing, I will get to that in a second. But the message was clear. Putin was basically like, Ukraine, if you're gonna disavow communist Russia and all of the things that it gave to you, you don't deserve the land that you got from communist Russia. And in fact, all of this land still belongs to Russia and we're gonna take it back.
Вы хотите декоммунизацию?
I mean, he did say that. Like, so his analysis on this front is not wrong. I mean, this is pretty much what he said.
Ну что же, нас это вполне устраивает. Но не нужно, что называется,
Like, what do you guys think that we'll show you decommunization? What do you think that meant? That's what it meant. I mean, that's what he was saying.
останавливаться на полпути. Мы готовы показать вам, что значит для Украины настоящая декоммунизация.
But this warped historical framing of who rightfully owns this land isn't quite enough to justify an invasion, maybe in like 1860 or something, but not today. So Putin needs to really emphasize the villains in his story. So he makes a big part of his story this idea that Ukraine, this fake country, is being run by American-backed anti-Russian neo-Nazis who are holding the Ukrainian people hostage.
Неудивительно, что украинское общество столкнулось с ростом крайнего национализма, который быстро приобрел форму агрессивной русофобии и неонацизма.
Okay. It's easy to poke fun at like the delusion of Vladimir Putin, but let's talk about the facts here and what Putin is actually basing this off of, because it really matters for understanding why he went in and why he's gonna lose. First, let's just clear up the fact that Ukraine wasn't invented by Russia. Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, was a thriving city long before Moscow was even on the map. Ukraine has a very old culture. But what Putin has done is twisted modern history to make a claim that Ukraine actually isn't a legitimate country. And he does this because it's a very key part of his story, one that supports the second major argument, which is that Ukraine is run by neo-Nazis who want to exterminate the Russian-speaking population. So let's get the facts here. Within Ukraine, there is indeed a faction of far-right neo-Nazis who have a political party.
I love the latest coverage of Azov Battalion ranged from Ukraine, like every single fucking outlet, including like the Atlantic Council, you know what I mean? Like the people that are very much at the helm of like regime change and like favorable Western influence in Ukraine. All these people that are like also admitting that like Ukraine has a gigantic Nazi problem, to the NPR broadcasters like this week being like, what is that swastika that you have in your hand? What does that imply? And the guy being like, I can't say. I cannot say. It straight up went from like, this is a real issue. This is a real issue. This is a real issue to like, you know, PBS fucking interviewing the dude with the Bandera poster behind him, to like, to NPR being like, is that a swastika? Like, why do you? He's like, I cannot say.
And a militia force.
One guy said it's just a sun sign. Yeah.
This militia force has actually joined the Ukrainian army in the past 8 years to fight Russia back from annexing any more territory in the east of the country. You may have remembered that Russia took over a big part of Ukraine called Crimea 8 years ago.
Ukrainian forces have set up a perimeter.
Bro, I swear to God, literally the same. I'm losing my fucking mind, dude. I'm losing it, okay? Same guy. Same hair. They're all sexy. Same person. Why? Well, how? Where do they find the hot generic war reporter, dude? I'm fucking losing it. Are they in like... Are they being built in a lab? Are they cloned? What the fuck? Is this like a... Why are all the fucking war reporters the same, dude?
But it's clear that we are completely surrounded by Russian forces.
Yeah, these neo-Nazi fighters, sort of nationalist guys, came up as a resistance to that. And yeah, Putin's got one thing right. These are not good.
Okay, first of all, they didn't come up as a resistance to that. How are you going to talk about like Kievan Rus, but then not talk about Bandera or talk about like the nationalist movement within Ukraine? Like, motherfucker went back. He was like, at first, you know, we were just a gas cloud, okay? And then we were like a toad-like figure that was able to walk away from the water and then skipped like the most fundamentally important part about Ukrainian nationalism that makes it such a significant fucking, a significant problem, a unique problem, if you will. They are like 3% only. Who cares? No, it's not. It's not just Svoboda and it's fucking 3% support in a 44 million person country. It is the history of Ukrainian nation building. Oh my God, I can't talk. 3% is all you fucking need, okay? It's going to be more than 3% regardless, but like, what do you mean? It's just 3%. America has done more with less support. You understand?
Good people. These are literal neo-Nazi white supremacist soldiers that commit all sorts of atrocities and train...
Like people are failing to comprehend something incredibly and profoundly important here, okay? And that is that, one, nationalism doesn't fucking work the same way that it does in America, okay? Two, we are funding, training, and legitimizing the 3%, okay? Or those who represent the paramilitary branch of the 3% that are actively operating within the military, okay? Within the National Guard. That is the problem, okay? I don't know how you guys are not seeing that that is going to be an issue, and it is an issue already, and it's going to be even a larger issue.
Children in their ideology and fighting tactics.
Oh, you did it! Oh. Wait, hold on.
That commit all...
Okay, dude, thank you for this. Fucking finally, dude. Oh, what? I didn't even see myself in the middle. Fuck you. Actually, fuck you, dude. I didn't even see myself in the middle of this, but what is this? They're the same guy. Especially these two, and then there's a third one that looks like them too. And then this guy maybe too. There's like a couple that look exactly like this model. These guys don't look that similar.
All sorts of atrocities and train children in their ideology and fighting tactics. So yeah, Putin, I get it. These are bad people, neo-Nazis. We don't like them. But Putin is claiming that these are the people running the country, running Ukraine. When in fact, if you look at the data from the 2019 election in Ukraine, you'll see that the country's ultra-nationalist far-right coalition gained barely over 2% of the vote and 0 seats in the parliament. They are a small group of extremely fringe far-right fighters that Putin has latched onto. Oh, and there's a more obvious bit of data here, which is that the Ukrainian president is Jewish and has family who died in the Holocaust.
By the way, the mega brain lip take when you're talking about like definitely not having neo-Nazi ties at all. When you point to a guy who is on the record doing Holocaust revisionism, Bibi fucking Netanyahu, who abso-fucking-lutely has aligned with fascists at the global level time and time again. So, like, this does not absolve you of anything, okay? What the fuck? Zelensky is not a Nazi. That's it. He's not. Anyone who tells you he's a fucking Nazi is ridiculous. The capitulation that he does to Nazis is the same level that you see in every government, okay? Every single government. We have Nazis in America. There are Nazis in the AfD in Germany. There are Nazis everywhere. Unfortunately, that ideology is growing, partially because we just keep happening to, help them out all the time. It's very weird. We just keep doing that, okay? But he's a lib. He's a liberal. Stephen Miller is a Nazi, and he is Jewish. So what the fuck does that say? That's an American Nazi. Anyway. But again, it's just crazy fucking to be like, oh, dude, look at him hanging out with Bibi Netanyahu.
Ukraine is not run by neo-Nazis. Listen, to balance my view on this, because I'm in the West and I'm getting all Western media, I have actually been watching Russian state TV to see what the narrative is on their side. And I can tell you that they actually believe that the country is run by Nazis.
Okay, dude. The other part of this, again, if you don't mention Ukraine's history of nationalism and Bandera's work with Nazi Germany and the 1.6 million, according to some estimates, all the way down to conservative estimates claiming 900,000 Ukraine Jews dying in the Holocaust, being brutally fucking violently murdered in the Holocaust at the hands of Nazi Germany that was working side by side with the Ukrainian nationalists who thought that Germany would offer them a USSR-free sovereign nation, okay? And how in 2010, the Ukrainian government literally wanted to offer a heroic medal, the highest honor, to Bandera, the guy who did that. You're missing a big chunk of the plot. That's why you can get away with saying, oh, Svoboda, 3%. That's nothing. It's nothing.
It is reminiscent of the practices and methods of Nazi Germany.
And we're seeing a full revival of Nazism and fascism in Ukraine.
I've tried to dig into this to try to understand, is there more, meat on the bone here? No, there's not. A fringe group of militiamen in the Far East are what Putin is basing this off of. Over here... that's not true. That's literally not true. You said you just did your research and you looked at, 3 Russia Today clips? Obviously, those guys are doing fucking propaganda. Who gives a fuck about what you're doing there? Jesus Christ, dude. Yeah, I mean, the idea that, you want to denazify a country, that's why you have to invade them and make them all fucking super nationalistic, understandably, because they see it as a liberation from a imperial power is idiotic, self-defeating, stupid, foolish, made up. Okay? Country where fewer and fewer people like Russia. In fact, it's a country that ousted the pro-Russian leader in 2014.
Wait, what? What is this?
With its own culture that is thousands of years old. It is a country where fewer and fewer people like Russia. In fact, it's a country that ousted the pro-Russian leader in 2014. The people don't want Russia and Putin anymore. They've moved on. But all of these facts are explained away very conveniently by Putin's bigger conspiracy, which is that it's actually...
The South has multiple statues of Confederate generals. I still don't think everyone in the South is racist. Dog, I've made that analogy and it works against you. I hope you understand that. Of course, everyone in the South is not racist, but yes, you were... Exactly. That's... Oh my God. I made that analogy earlier today. Yeah. Exactly. What, you think the fucking Southern officials are not upholding white supremacist values, attitudes on a daily fucking basis? Exactly. I would go so far as to say by and large, if Ukraine was able to fucking be a sovereign nation without any sort of outside influence from the West or from Russia, they could have fucking probably dealt with this problem a little bit better on their own.
Actually outside forces that are pulling the strings, and that the people of Ukraine have been brainwashed by the West. And yet there is one thing that Putin is absolutely right about.
Это наши товарищи, близкие, среди которых не только коллеги, друзья, бывшие сослуживцы, но и родственники. Люди, связанные с нами кровными семейными узами.
These two countries are deeply connected through culture and language and history and exchange.
I did mention the Poles as well.
Ukrainians
Polish chatter
would not sit well with the Russian people. And this explains why Putin needs to frame the war in a very certain way. Not an invasion to take over a sovereign nation of Russia's brothers and sisters, but rather a rescue effort to save the Ukrainian people from these aggressive villains who are really controlling the country.
В курсе ли всех этих управленческих методов сами украинцы? Понимают ли, что их страна находится даже не под политическим и экономическим протекторатом, а сведена до уровня колонии с марионеточным режимом?
Okay, I'm about to jump
into... Oh, by the way, for the record, do you know who Bandera worked with when he was in Western Germany? Originally with British intelligence, and then, if I'm not mistaken, Bandera and his supporters, this might actually surprise you a little bit, three-letter agency that still gets brought up in this broadcast quite a bit. So, you know.
To the maps and look at how the war is actually playing out and help us understand.
Yeah, the Homeowners Association.
I really want us to keep in mind Putin's story because it really will make everything click. So let's just go over it really quickly. Putin's story is really four things.
No, he didn't collaborate with the KGB, unless you mean collaboration is when they put a bullet in his head. I don't know how they executed him, but KGB did kill him in Munich.
1. Ukraine really belongs to Russia. Number 2, it has been hijacked by the US and Europe, i.e. the West. Number 3, the West is controlling Ukraine with its neo-Nazi puppets, also that the West military alliance called NATO can use Ukraine as a bridge to get to Russia, who they want to defeat. And all of this leads to Putin must invade to free Ukrainians and protect Russia from the West. That is it. That is the justification that Vladimir Putin has been building for years, if not decades.
Повторю, наши действия – это самозащита от создаваемых нам угроз и от еще большей беды, чем та, что происходит сегодня.
Minutes after this second address last week, where he laid out all of his justifications, in the middle of the night, the rockets start flying and the tanks start rolling.
I love to rescue a country by doing this, by the way. It's what an incredible way to rescue a nation from Western influence by literally just galvanizing and legitimizing the absolute worst reactionary people by doing exactly this, and 2, again, legitimizing all of the help that they've gotten from the West to be able to purge back the invading fucking forces. Incredible stuff by Putin. I mean, holy shit! What a 5D chess player. What a strategic grandmaster he is. Holy fuck, dude! What an incredible way to denazify a country. Incredible stuff. Just straight America, baby. Like unironically, exactly the same as like we're bringing democracy to him, baby. That's right. That's exactly what this is.
This is how it started. What is becoming the most consequential.
Yeah, Putin stole America's flow bar for bar, word for fucking word, dude. Straight up. Incredible.
War in Europe since World War II. A pretend rescue effort framed as an operation to denazify the country. Russia comes in from all sides, quickly taking over mostly rural areas, but slowly moving towards the major cities.
The country is being attacked from all directions. Some of those Russian troops are heading here to the capital.
In addition to tanks and troops taking over land, Russia also starts firing missiles that hit targets all throughout the country.
This has come out of nowhere. Who resists? Oh, I tell you what, I just heard a big bang right here.
The invasion, the attack that Russia promised would never happen, has now started.
People who live in Kyiv are sleeping in underground subway stations. It's the only place they feel safe.
Ukrainians fled to basements, to bomb shelters.
Some people are adjusting to this new reality of living in a country now at war.
Hundreds of thousands fled to the borders west of the country, looking for safety.
Others are taking trains to the west to get out of the country.
They are fleeing into neighboring countries like Moldova, Romania, and Poland.
At the city's central train station, a frantic dash as people try to escape to the west of the country.
But wait, remember Putin's story? According to this story, after this initial invasion, Ukrainians were going to wake up from their slumber and welcome him with open arms. The neo-Nazi president was going to flee, and Ukraine would be returned to Russia, Putin becoming the savior of the Russian motherland. But that is exactly what didn't happen.
Outgunned and outnumbered, Ukrainian soldiers and civilians alike are mounting a stiff resistance.
I used to teach maths and physics, but 2 days ago the Russian army took control of my town, so I signed up to fight.
Every day Ukrainians are taking to the streets to fight for their homeland.
Let those Russian shits come here, she says. We are ready to greet them.
We are ready to fight. And fight like hell.
This is my city, this is my land, I have to protect it.
You do not feel they're going to succeed in taking out your administration and your government?
No way. As they will never take Kyiv.
The response of Ukrainians, both military and civilian, is where Putin's story starts to crumble.
The entire world is witnessing the determined and brave resistance by the Ukrainian.
Put that on a fuckload of weapons, baby. I mean, straight up. I mean, dude, fuckloads.
Army and population.
I have never seen Ukraine that united.
And as for the president of Ukraine, the alleged neo-Nazi drug addict thug puppet of the West, well, the US actually offered to airlift him out of the country for his own safety. Instead of taking the offer, his response was, quote, "The fight is here. I need ammunition, not a ride." Which, by the way, that quote has been turned into a t-shirt that you can buy on Amazon.
Ukrainians are fighting for love of country. Russians are fighting out of a fear of a dictator.
In the event of Russia opting for escalation, Ukraine will defend itself.
He then sent a video around to the country of him in central Kiev, making it known that he is staying, he is fighting. So despite being totally outmatched militarily, Ukrainians are fighting back, showing that the outcome of a war is as much determined by the courage and patriotism
There's a little bit of a body bag here,
by the
man.
number of missiles and troops that you have.
Будут наступать войска.
If they try to take this country from us, our freedom, our lives, the lives of our children, we will defend ourselves.
Наши жизни, жизни наших детей. Мы будем защищать.
We will defend ourselves. Wait, that wasn't even a fucking body bag. What the fuck? That was just a sandbag, chatters. Y'all were like, oh, they're carrying a body in a body bag. It was just a sandbag that they were carrying. It's all good. It's good to be paranoid in a situation like this, especially at the top of the hour when the ad break is coming. What is Johnny honestly adding to all this discourse? Nothing. He's just making like a good, cool, feel good, pretty lib approach to dramatically retelling the events that took place. And honestly, I mean, he's not wrong in a lot of the stuff. He's not wrong. Like maybe a little bit of downplaying and saying like, oh, the Nazi thing is not a big deal or whatever. But, you know, we'll have that conversation 20 years down the line. You know what I mean? It's not like a conversation to be had right now in this very moment. And people don't want to have that fucking conversation regardless. And they will never want to have that conversation. And people will continue to say the exact same shits that people say about Afghanistan now to this day. But other than that, I mean, he's right. When you attack us, you will see our faces. Not our backs, but our faces.
I've been talking to people inside Ukraine and seeing this devotion firsthand.
How is morale right now among you and among the people you're talking to?
Honestly, extremely high.
Ukrainians aren't letting this conquest happen, and in doing so, they are turning Putin's argument, his story, on its head, and foiling what appears to be his initial strategy for wrangling Ukraine back into his sphere of influence. One Ukrainian I talked to said that there's a waiting list for the Ukrainian army.
Our regional defense won't accept any more people because it's packed.
The queues are growing.
And you cannot even get in right now.
Men volunteering to fight.
Molotov cocktails for those who want to fight but don't have a gun.
A tweet from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry to prepare Molotov cocktails to throw at the occupiers.
Well, I'm here in order to protect my family, my country.
I mean, this is, you know what this is? This is a sexy way to, like, this is what the Podjons do, right? Well, they're like, we're independent. Like, we're not towing the DNC line at every step of the way. The Podjons do a really good job with this, where they make themselves seem as to be like more independent than the average newscast that you can get. That's exactly what Johnny Harris is doing here as well. He took every single thing that you've heard on CNN and turned it into a 27-minute video, and it's like sexy, it's zoomer focused, it doesn't offer any sort of like additional analysis, it doesn't really feature any kind of like it doesn't feature anything that you haven't heard before.
An incredible sense of unity here. The morale is very high.
Okay, this sounds all positive, and it is, but this is still war, and Putin can still conquer a lot of land. He can take over major cities, install a puppet government, and be the new ruler of Ukraine. He has the military to do it, and he seems to have the tolerance for bloodshed. He seems to believe in his fantasy story so much that he's gonna keep up this crusade. But I'm here to tell you that Putin has already lost this war. I mean, let's play this out so I can show you what I mean. Let's say Putin keeps going. He keeps sending troops in and missiles despite all of this resistance. He could eventually take over the major population centers, including the capital Kiev. All of this with the same goal that he's had the whole time, which is getting the Ukrainians to give up and realize that Russia is actually the country they want to align with. He's also kind of hoping that maybe the Ukrainian military will come to their senses and take over the government and negotiate with Putin. But let's say they never do, they probably won't. Instead, they keep doing what they've been doing for the last week.
And this is exactly what I fucking despise. Americans fantasizing about a war overseas without thinking about the repercussions. People constantly make comparisons to Afghanistan. Look at Afghanistan right now. It's not great, okay? That is the problem that I always have with ongoing war. We talk about Ukrainians and their potential for insurgency in these really flowery terms, like that's going to be a good thing, like an endless occupation that they have to purge year over year for 20 fucking years, dude. That's not a good thing at all. That is a horrible, horrible, disastrous reality for Ukraine. Just like it was a horrible, disastrous reality for Afghanistan and the people of Afghanistan. It's like romanticizing about the plight of the Ukrainians and thinking about them this way is great from afar when you're, 6,000, 7,000, 10,000 miles away. But these are real fucking people. These are real accountants, real math teachers, real math students, coders, HasanAbi heads that are getting fucking, that are throwing their lives on the line.
Resisting, defending, condemning, and broadcasting all of it to the world on the internet. So Putin has no choice but to drive the government out and install a pro-Russian regime. In order to do this, he's going to need a massive military presence to keep control of these cities and their people. It's now costing him tens of
Are you saying it's all America's fault? No, of course I'm not saying that. Why are you trying to fucking clip some shit out of context? No, I'm not saying it's all America's fault. If anything, the majority of the fault still lies with Russia, okay? That's the invading force.
Of dollars.
But the reality is, if America wanted to, they could fucking put an end to this like yesterday. Okay? They are the superpower.
Crippling his economy, which, by the way, is only like the size of Texas. I mean, one of the biggest knocks on Putin's plan is the sheer size of Ukraine. Let's zoom out and realize that Ukraine is huge. It's the biggest country in Europe, if you don't count Russia, the giant country that extends into Asia. Occupying this entire landmass would be basically impossible for Russia. So you have a map that maybe looks something like this, which gives plenty of space for Ukrainians to gather and mount their resistance, giving Russia hell for an indefinite period of time. Meanwhile, back home in Russia, they've now seen the imagery from the ground. They now see that Putin's story justifying this invasion is total BS. There's no Nazis, there's no brainwashing.
Are you a war hawk now? Wait, what?
Instead,
How?
in this scenario, Russians are thinking of deaths of our Ukrainian brothers and sisters, while also destroying the Russian economy.
What? No, America could put a stop to this yesterday. Doesn't mean put a stop to it by fucking instituting a no-fly zone, guys. What the fuck? No, what I mean is America is the soiling party at the table that is the secret party behind the Western influence that Ukrainians rely on. Okay? They are the ones that you see France and you see Germany trying to execute some kind of ceasefire, some kind of negotiation, some kind of neutralization. And the reason why it's not happening is because America is the party behind those, like the one with the actual fucking power to make concessions on behalf of Ukrainians. That's the unfortunate reality. That's precisely why Zelensky keeps calling for NATO to do a fucking no-fly zone. That's why he keeps calling for more ammunition. Thank you, Rogelio's dope, for the 7 gifted subs. A ceasefire means that you give up Ukraine? No, it doesn't. Especially because if you think that you are overestimating the power of the United States, no, I'm not, dude. You're crazy. I'm not. The way a negotiation works is both sides make fucking arguments, okay? Both sides make demands and concessions are made. You understand? Both sides make demands and concessions are made. Russia's demands, as it stands, literally according to the call that was made to the Chancellor of Germany and also the call that was made with Macron, neither of which were productive according to either party. The demands were as follows. Some kind of Minsk agreement being reinstituted and actually being followed, okay? The bulk of the Minsk agreement was recognition of the autonomy, not sovereignty, but autonomy of DPR and LPR, so that they can continue, learning in Russian, speak Russian without any fear. That will still be inside of Ukrainian borders. Okay, the recognition of Crimea being full-blown Russian territory, and lastly, or the last 2 arguments that are the fucking ridiculous ones, which is the denazification and demilitarization of Ukraine. Those last 2, that's not going to happen. That's never going to happen. But the concessions are ones that Ukraine has functionally signed on before. The NATO troops wanting to move back and all this other shit is that's just whatever. That's never going to happen. Like, of course not. So what is Russia giving here? An end to the fucking brutality. That's what Russia is giving here. Now, we don't know if Putin will actually fucking accept the concessions. We don't know. We don't even know if Putin will stop if all of the concessions are met. Okay? We don't know. And you can say that it's not going to happen and he's not going to stop. Okay, then it's the same as yesterday. It's the exact same as yesterday, and the war continues to wage. And you keep trying to apply pressure. Do you not understand? He won't. It's full annexation. How come you don't get it yet? Is so silly. I'm not saying Putin is not interested in fully annexing Ukraine, okay? I'm not saying that. What don't you understand? But even if it doesn't work, America coming to the fucking table seriously and saying, yeah, we got to do this. What's the harm in trying? That's what I don't get. Even if it's a total disaster, even if Hasan is pro-Russian, bad take. Yeah, totally. That's pro-Russian. Wanting to try to minimize harm for random Ukrainians is being fucking pro-Russian. Yeah, no, we should just sit from 10,000 miles away on our fucking goddamn couches and jerk off to this like romantic, fantastic Ukrainian nationalist defense brigade, okay? And not even nationalists, just the Ukrainian people, the Ukrainian nation fighting against a fucking imperial force and dying. Cannon fodder. Let's just turn Ukraine into Afghanistan. You're not going to give a shit about that tomorrow anyway. You're going to forget about it because you live here. You live in the lap of luxury. You live in the imperial core. So you don't give a fuck. Of course you don't give a fuck. It doesn't touch you. It'll never touch you. Part of it is because, you know, NATO is not going to get involved. So it doesn't touch you. You don't get killed in nuclear holocaust. You got your shit situated. You got your shit sorted. You had a really good, you got a really good spawn point. So you're fine. And whenever someone even says like, well, you have to fucking exhaust all diplomatic options with the hope that it will turn into Afghanistan for Russia. Yes. And you're totally right because the West keeps supplying weapons to Ukraine. Wait, what? Yeah, but people always say it will turn into Afghanistan for Russia. Yes. Which, by the way, I haven't even talked about the dissolution or the destruction of the Russian state in the aftermath of Putin, a country with 6,000 nuclear weapons, and God knows a country that, as far as we know, does not even have a contingency plan, that has, 150 million people in it. And holy fuck, I don't even want to think about what's going to happen in the aftermath of Putin. But when you say it's going to turn into Afghanistan for Russia, you fail to recognize what's going on in Afghanistan for for the people in Afghanistan, for the Afghan people. You think they're in a good situation overall? No, they're not. That's what I'm talking about.
Almost every Russian has someone from Ukraine, either a friend or a relative or a colleague. This is a war between brothers.
Protesters in the streets demonstrating against Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine.
On top of all of that, the rich Russian...
We can't get people to wear masks. And you think we can manage a global conspiracy? Ukraine is in Afghanistan. The EU isn't going to let a failed state happen on its borders. Yeah, the EU isn't. The EU doesn't want a failed state happening on its borders, dummy. America is not a part of the EU. If you look at who has been the most aggressive, if I were to draw a fucking chart of like proximity to reactionary attitudes towards like Russia invading Ukraine and like less likely to be fucking engaged in diplomacy, Canada and the United States are at the top of that fucking leaderboard, and then UK is like following closely. And the closer you get to fucking Ukraine, the more likely your leadership wants to make concessions and negotiate. I wonder why. Because they recognize what's going to happen. They recognize the displacement. They recognize the suffering that the people of Ukraine are going to get put through. Okay? America doesn't give a shit because we're so far removed from all the immediate and also long-term consequences of that.
Russian business guys who keep Putin in power, the oligarchs, they aren't happy because the entire world has cut Russia off.
Russian billionaires moving their yachts, scrambling their jets, and shifting their assets to prepare for a possible crackdown.
They can't access their financial reserves. Their ability to move money is made much more difficult. People aren't letting their trade vessels into ports.
New efforts by U.S. law enforcement to make Russian oligarchs feel the pain of Putin's war.
I mean, this is effectively what sanctions do. So the oligarchs are now like, dude, Putin, WTF. And they put pressure on him to stop this madness. But even still, Putin has enough power that he could still dig in his heels and keep trying to get Ukrainians to come under his rule. But by this point, Ukrainians are done with Putin. They see his true colors. Anyone who was on the fence before has now witnessed civilians being killed in Putin's war of choice. They won't come on his side now. The upshot here is that there's not really a scenario where Putin keeps going and gets what he wants. And that's because the story that he based this invasion off of is proving to be totally wrong. All of these assumptions that he predicated his war on turned out to be the delusions of a pseudo-history buff stuck in the logic of the Cold War, not the realities on the ground today. Add another point to the against Putin camp. Meanwhile, Putin's war has united the West and NATO like never before. NATO has a new sense of purpose, a new thing to rally around, something they've been looking for since the end of the Cold War. And Ukraine, who is currently getting tons of support and weapons and money and aid and refugee support from NATO countries, is now way more likely to sympathize with the West, because now they've seen the realities of what Putin has to offer, which is falsehoods and unprovoked conflict, all in the name of some ill-defined vision of former imperial glory. Nope.
It's my city, it's my hometown, it's my homeland, it's my country, and I'm not the one who should live. The Russians are the one who should live. Russia is a great nation, full of beautiful culture, geography, history, and people. The vast majority of those people don't want imperial-style expansion and war. They want to live their lives, to prosper, to connect. And yet, the warped, delusional worldview of one greedy man has...
No, they're going to despise us using their lives as a political weapon? No, I don't think so. I think Ukrainians, by and large, think the West is on their side. I think Ukrainians don't have this like no, they won't. They won't. They're too busy fucking fighting. Like they don't see it as like America and some of the Western leadership dangling NATO membership in front of them when they know very well that that's not going to happen. They see it as like, thank God they're giving us javelins. And that's correct. Like, thank God they're getting javelins. That's the only way to fucking purge against, that's the only way to push against the violent imperial forces that are at their doorstep. As a Pakistani, I think you wildly misunderstand the conditions of Ukrainians and how they aren't perceiving it.
11 months and I don't regret it, hassle.
What do you mean? But those are imperialist arming rebel forces? Bro, people who say I don't support Russia or U.S. imperialism end up supporting U.S. imperial actions like sanctions or NATO or no-fly zones. Fluent English speaker? Wait, what? The fuck do you mean, dude? No, I don't have I don't support imperial actions. What makes you think that I'm pro NATO? What the fuck are you talking about?
Cut off their ability to do that. How is that possible?
The Russian people...
I'm so glad we watched the Second Thought video first, because it he already addressed the liberal idealistic version that liberals love talking about.
Have no say in the behavior of their government under the Putin dictatorship.
These incredibly brave people, often young people in Russia, who are out on the streets protesting.
You just said sending javelins were good? Yeah, of course. If a country is fucking invading you, the people on the ground are going to think, thank God I have javelins and manpads against the fucking invading forces. What the fuck do you mean? Obviously.
Against what their president is doing.
This is not the war by the people of Russia. This is yet another military adventure by the unaccountable, unelected, increasingly deranged dictator in the Kremlin by the name of Vladimir Putin.
This situation is developing and certainly will take paths that no one can predict. By the time you're watching this, I'm sure some key development has happened that I haven't covered here. But I feel pretty certain when I say that Putin really doesn't have a path to the victory that he set out to achieve last week when he sent people and weapons across his border to attack his neighbors. Ukrainians, with their bold courage, have proved him wrong. I know that sounds very poetic and maybe even cliche, but in this case it's true.
So if someone told me a week ago I would own an assault rifle, I would not believe.
So now the world will stand by and support as they continue to wage this battle for the future of their land that belongs to them, not to a Russian dictator.
Just for everyone to know, it's our land, it's our home, we will defend it.
13 Ukrainian border guards defiantly telling an invading Russian
Now, do one on U.S. imperialism law? No. Let's be fair. Listen, the modern liberal understands American imperialism as a bad thing. Modern liberal like Johnny will say America's in the wrong for invading Iraq. They won't say America's in the wrong for invading Afghanistan, but they'll say America's in the wrong for invading Iraq, and they'll say America's in the wrong for staying in Afghanistan for as long as they did. The modern liberal even admits some of the underlying events that we participated in that turned Afghanistan into what it is. Except the modern liberal will then turn around and say, that was old shit, that was wrong, but this time it's different. This time it's good. Okay? It's always hindsight that's 20/20. It's never foresight. And Johnny Harris has done plenty of videos about this sort of stuff, so that's not true. He has absolutely fucking criticized America invading Iraq, criticized America invading Afghanistan, criticized America in Vietnam, and numerous other places. He's talked about American colonialism or American imperialism a lot. Okay? How would someone defend the invasion of Afghanistan post 9/11 frenzy?
Yo.
So he's
ship to go F yourself when asked to surrender.
And we will win. Russian ship, go fuck yourself. Slava Ukraini.
Anyway,